Do you know what? It's a big subject, isn't it? Running small groups. So we'll talk about some stuff, but obviously there's a lot to cover. And I first of all just thought, what could be really cool? I'll go first, as an example. And I've got a little rule as well, which I'll give you. But has anyone got any funny stories from running a small group that you were just like, I can't believe that actually happened? And a couple of rules on this is, you can't say their name if you do say a fake name, so we don't know who it is, And the other rule is, whenever you say something today, try and say in your head, I've got to say it in under 60 seconds. Is that a fair rule?
Yep.
If you want, I can even put a timer up. I've just prepared one. I thought some people might need the timer, some people are not to. And it's just us kind of like interacting, even as a group now, as if we're a small group, and just thinking, what would be the best thing? Because you've all been in a small group where like someone grabs hold of it and you think, we're in. We're in now for the long haul, and it's going to take a long time to get out of that one. And so it's just putting that practice in. But no, any funny stories from like a small group you've been in that you were like, what on earth was going on there? I'll go first. So I had one small group. I think we were in a cafe actually. We were doing it in this cafe that was a laundrette, and we used to hire it at night. And I actually can't remember the subject because this was about 10 years ago, 12 years ago or something. And I shared something, and this one girl just sat there and went, what a load of... I just said it out loud. And I just went, right. Grace, I don't know if you were there. You were there. Yeah, that actually happened. It's a true story. So that was a pretty crushing moment. Anyone else been in a strange small group moment you can't believe it happened? Go on, Jean.
Before I was born again, friends came to our house and they said I had to leave to get to church the next morning early, and I said, what a load of rubbish.
Yeah.
So I'm with that woman.
Yes, you were the woman. You actually were the person who said it.
I was with her. Yeah.
Love it. Anyone else had any surreal moments where you thought, you got one, David?
Angie and I were in a small group, and a couple. There was a couple in the group, and I don't know if most people know that I ride motorbikes. So there was a couple in the group, and he always had wanted a Harley Davidson. So they were sitting in the group, and they told us their great news that they were expecting a baby. So I said flippantly in the group, I said, oh, if it's a boy, I expect you call him Harley. And they both went silent. They looked at each other, and it was like, they looked at each other in a way, why did you tell him? And it was a very awkward moment. And then, lo and behold, 9 months later, I got a phone call. We've had a son, we're calling him Harley.
Love that. Middle name Davidson. Yeah. Awesome. Any others? You're lucky people if you haven't had any win moments. What was another one? I had another one where I had one. It was around that time. This was when I first started leading small groups, and I actually can't remember the subject again. It was that was what it was about. It was about trying to understand the different parts of the human being. So you're like a mind, you're a body, you're a spirit, all that kind of stuff. And I was talking about this. And this one girl just started arguing with me, not the same girl. And in the end, I'd only just started doing this talk on it, and in the end I just had to stop doing the talk. And we just parked it. And the reason was I just didn't quite have the biblical knowledge to justify carrying on. So I decided, alright, fine, I'll stop. And we just stopped and just did something else. So that was a pretty horrific moment. Can you imagine that? Were you there for that one, Grace?
Yeah, I was there for that one.
You were there for that one?
Yeah, I've been in all of them.
This girl stuck with me through thick and thin, even the heresies. Yeah. So awkward stuff does happen. I think that running a small group, it's a bit like, I always think sharing faith is one of the best discipleship tools ever. Because you got to know something and be prepared for whatever's going to come at you. Like, someone can say anything to you at any moment. And I think, like, running a small group is probably half as bad as that, but a similar situation where you just don't know what's coming. Maybe the worst bit about a small group compared to sharing faith is sharing faith, you might be in a one-on-one situation. Whereas in a small group, they've said it and it's a bit more public. There's other people in on the moment, and you're like, how do I get in and out of this moment right now? And it's difficult, isn't it? What I thought as well would be smart for me to ask, and I don't know how best to do this in a bigger group, but I'm just trying to get a picture of like where are you guys at with small groups? So let's do this and don't feel bad. Put your hand up if you're in a small group right now. Well done, you can all stay. Did you not think?
Well, the thing is, I'm in two churches. I'm here because I want to start and encourage small groups in the Anglican church that I go to that doesn't have small groups.
So you've got a church that's kind of like maybe needing a bit of extra support, and you're just thinking, how can I do
that's why God sent me out there, is to sort of get it in spiritual. My friend Anne was supposed to be coming as well, so we were going to do it together, but she can't come. But what keeps coming to mind as well is that small groups isn't just for adults. I used to run one for teenagers because Ray said to me, Mum, I want to study the Bible, and the group that she went to was more about topics. So I started a group with the teens. We taught them how to study the Bible, and we had different versions and made notes and all sorts of different stuff. And each person had their own thing that they liked doing. So you had to go with what they would do. Like one wouldn't contribute, but she liked taking the notes. So I let her do that, and then somebody else liked contributing a lot. One of them was now a pastor, one of them was Grace, the other one was a youth worker. I can't remember the others, but they're all leaders anyway.
Yeah.
So,
and I think what you're showing us is the impact that small groups can have, and actually what it can produce as an end result. And that is why I think, is that why we're all here?
That's teenagers as well.
That's teenagers as well. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm really aware of the impact small groups can have. Who's currently leading a group? Is anyone here currently leading? Okay, so we've got a few people currently leading. And hands up, last question, if you've ever led a small group. You might not be leading right now, but you have at some point in your life. Okay, so we're good. We've got a decent mix, haven't we? And you never know, the time might come again if you're not currently in one where you do. It is good having had some experience leading one, because then you can kind of have that empathy with someone who's leading it and understand what's going on, and that's a beautiful thing that we can share. So today, what am I going to do? I'm going to look at a few different things. We might not cover everything. So I am, in a moment, going to look at like connection points, things that we can use to always draw us back together if things get a bit edgy in the group. We're going to look at some difficult questions and actually do them. We'll actually do some questions between us and almost be a small group and have a bit of fun. I've got a cracking question which I love to ask, because what is the answer? I'm still not 100%, and I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on that. And I've also got some cool quotes which I thought were really inspiring. So, right, first things from me. I just want to say some practical stuff that I think about small groups, that you are not me, and your situations are different to me, okay? So, just be aware of that. Generally, my small groups have had younger people in them, probably 40 and below. That's generally where I've done small groups. At the moment, that is not the case. It's a bit more mixed, and I get a bit more of different age, and it's a bit more diverse, which is really nice. And so, if you're doing a small group of, say, younger people, it's actually very different. Let me give you some examples. You want to think about how it's lit, don't you? If I'm with older people and I make the room a bit dim, they'll all moan at me, they can't see. share. You see the difference? The younger people feel less exposed by the like, oh, you can all see me. And that's one of the reasons you get those like city centre churches where it's night time and the lights are a bit dimmed in their worship, because they're a bit insecure. Whereas you get a bit older and you think, I don't care. You know.
Can't
So-
see the words.
Yeah.
Sorry, you can't see the words if it's dim.
Yeah.
This is it.
Oh, you can't hear.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, another thing is, hearing. So this is a mixed one, you know. Who knows what's coming? Even in a church, you know, you can be talking, one person's like, I can't hear, one person's going, you're being too loud, it's too noisy in this group. I like to put, my preference is to put music on in the background, just light, instrumental, or look at the grumbling. You see the problems you have. I like a bit of music. So you got the music problem. Okay, let's leave the music. Let's do a compromise. So music as people come in, so it's less awkward. So there's a bit of background noise. We'll turn it off when we start. How about that? Is that fair? You know, that's an example of a compromise or whatever. You don't have to have it. Okay, another one. Food. So some people are like, we must eat together. You know, we must. Acts 2:42 to 47. They ate together. You know, it's almost not biblical without it. You know, some people are really on the eating bit. Other people don't care. Some people can't wait and just eat before they get there, even if you've cooked them something. You know, you say, who's eating tonight? They turn up, I ate before I got here. And you think, I've just cooked that. You know. Leftovers. Okay, I bet you've all, have you ever cooked a meal expecting 10 and 4 people cancelled just before the night? Yeah. And you're like, cheers guys, that's great. But don't worry, customer service for Jesus, I'm still smiling.
Dinner is provided for the next few days.
Exactly.
It always does.
Lovely.
This is
No,
it.
no, actually, the other way round.
Or you cooked for 10 and 14 turned.
Or you cook for 10 and 14 turned up. And now you're a phony because you're supposed to be able to multiply it.
Never could have had that.
Yeah, you need the miracle multiplication. You think, oh no, now I look stupid. My preference, this is me. Often I think if you do food every week, it can start to take over the group a little bit. And do you really get down to it much? That's what I've seen happens. If I was starting a group, I would maybe say, let's do meals. I would actually state this. I would be like, let's eat together for the first month, and then after that we'll just do snacks. And if someone's really having a fuss about it, we'll say the last one of the month we'll do food. We'll do a meal. That's what I do. I don't always do it because at the moment I don't have the complete power on the small groups I'm in because I'm trying to be a bit like this. But it does take over. That pretty much every time. What would I put there? I would put snacks that are healthy and unhealthy. And they have to be here and here. So literally get some oranges, get some apples, get some bananas, get something that actually is nice and good for you and makes you think, oh, it's a bit wholesome. And then just get absolute dirt, you know. Get the hobnobs with the chocolate, get the whatever it is. It's healthy in a balanced diet, isn't it, Bob? If you've had one of them a year, you're all right. I'd hit both ends of that scale. Drinks, have hot, have cold. You're probably running it at night time, so the coffee thing is an interesting thing. It's a really good idea to have some coffee on before people arrive because your house just smells bad. It's just a very lovely thing. But it is night time and not everyone wants coffee, but maybe it was worth it anyway. I don't know. That's what I do. That's what I like to do anyway. I don't always get
decaf.
Well, it could be decaf, yeah.
I do decaf.
I can't handle that. I'm sorry.
Not decaf. Imitation decaf.
It can't be.
Not instant decaf.
So, for a couple more points just before I move on. Actually, would anyone add to what I've said here so far? Would anyone be like, do you know what, I've seen this, or...
Well...
Put your hand up there. Yes, Bob?
Yeah, in the one that I do go to, and I've been going to for donkey's years, what we usually do is, so with the food-wise, normally on a Bible study night we read the Bible and then have prayer and then we have coffee afterwards.
Yeah.
And biscuit, nice biscuits, not the rubbishy, cheap, nice things, proper biscuits. And then once a quarter,
Yeah.
we'll go out for a meal, or we'll have an American supper in somebody's house or something, and everybody contributes. So we do have the meal, but that is just as a social.
Yeah.
But I think, I mean, I've always advocated that, you know, so like in the summer, barbecue time, it's an amazing thing to be able to invite people round for a barbecue, because you do that anyway. But if you've got other Christians around as well, it changes the tone of conversation, and they get to know the people who are Christians, don't have two heads and are weird. Well, actually, most of the Christians I know are probably weird, but
So that's actually
present company accepted.
what you've actually touched on there is a really simple principle, which you probably all do, which is use the seasons to your advantage and go with them. Why not join in with them? And that's why they're kind of there, aren't they? So if it's summer, do a barbecue or meet on a park maybe. If it's what I don't need to tell you that, you know what I mean. Use the seasons.
Are you going to talk about how you sit in the room, you know, the seating arrangements, because that can be quite tricky, but also quite important.
Yeah, that's coming in just a moment actually. So just before I get there, numbers first, numbers of people, and then we go into seating. So usually a small group is around the 10 or below mark, aren't they? That is actually normal. I just wanted to break some myths on that. It can be much bigger actually, and that's actually okay. You can argue it's very biblical. How many times do you think Jesus ended up in a house and it ended up overfilled? Lots of times when you go through the scripture, you've got the man lower down in the thing, that one. There's actually somewhere where it says he was in the house with his disciples, and it was so busy that the disciples couldn't even sit down to have a meal, so he then takes them into the wilderness to have a break.
Was that a small group? That's more like a preaching service than a small group.
But it was in some kind of house situation.
But they all were, yeah.
Where they were inside, yeah, so it didn't necessarily start like that, but it did grow, and that's the strange thing, and that's an example of that, is someone being lowered in, so the numbers are being added to that. I think it was Paul was preaching, and someone falls out of a window tired, because they've had enough. Yeah.
Because he
talked for a very long time. So here's what I wanted to say about spaces, is you want it to be comfortable, don't you? Obviously that's your ambition. You want people to be comfortable. And so you need to think about that. And it's really hard for me to say what your space is like, because everyone's going to be different. People will put up with something that is uncomfortable if it's awesome. If it's exciting and it's really kicking, it doesn't matter if it's comfortable. They'll go. So do remember that in the comfort. And just say, well, are we thriving here? What are we willing to put up with? Also, things growing, people go, it's not about growth. I agree. But I would also say, if you've got 10 people for 3 years, and no one has been led to Jesus at any point in those 3 years linked to those 10 people, ever, and you think about that hours available to 10 people over 3 years, if you to actually write the number down. If I said to you, you have this many hours just to see one person get a relationship with Jesus, it's quite a humbling thought, isn't it? And so actually, small groups are definitely on the cutting edge of what it is to be a practical theologian. You want to be practical theologians. And I think that's a big part of small groups. Theology is massive too, but people have got to walk out there having done something or review how they're living. And the reason you do that there is a place where you can talk about it. And questions like I just asked make you feel a bit exposed, don't they? But if you're in a group of people that you know and love, you can go, oh, I'll just say it, yeah. I've been very unproductive in that area. I'm not even trying. I don't know the last time I said Jesus to someone who wasn't saved. The best I can do is say God, if that. Small groups are for that. So yeah, how you want to sit down is up to you. It's, you know, some people do it around the dining room table, some people want to sit on sofas in the lounge. It's really diverse. Try and make people comfortable. Okay, final thing. Yeah, one more thing about numbers is if you ever ended up with a larger group, statistically that's unlikely for it to grow to 20. It can still be really amazing and vulnerable and intimate. Some people say to me, yeah, but you don't have the same intimacy or vulnerability and I disagree because I have seen it done. I have been in rooms with 25 people where people are confessing sins in a way that you cannot believe is happening. It has happened. Usually the key to that is people feel loved and the leader is leading with vulnerability themselves. They're being honest about themselves and their own struggles and challenges. And that makes someone else go, well, if he or she is not getting this spot on and is willing to say that, I could too. And so if you're leading a group, it's your job to be the fool for Christ. Who's going to be the fool first? So be it, be the fool. Any thoughts or questions so far?
You've not mentioned something that concerns me. I'm not quite sure whether I'm talking about culture or, in this environment, class. I mean, I look around here, yeah, we're all middle class. Are all small groups middle class rather than homeless or working class? I don't know. I've been out of this culture so long, I look at it differently. But that's a concern that I have.
I think that it might even, it's more than a concern, isn't it? I think you might be right. That's the worst part about what you're saying. I think that why is Alpha working and why is it generally working for middle class people? And why are small groups working and generally working for middle class people? And then what you do is you break it into what are its ingredients. So what is the soup? So the soup of these groups are a group of people sitting down, having a fairly calm, civilized conversation, being eloquent in the way they explain stuff so people can understand them, being able to understand other people in a dialogue that has nuance, being able to not get angry and fiery. Sometimes you end up in a lecture-based situation where you're actually hearing a lecture, so a middle-class person is more likely to have gone to a university-based living. That's probably what has made them middle class if you were to judge it by income. That's not always the best way to judge it though. So yeah, I think it is a serious issue and it's not simple to fix. My background really is working class. That's where I come from. If you were to put me, my dad and my sister and my mum in a room and get us to talk about difficult subjects, it'd be an argument. 100%. I've actually been gentrified. That's actually what's happened to me. I went back to where I live this week to help my dad, who's a builder, and I was like, I swear I'll go to the pubs that I used to go to and see if I see anyone that I used to know. So I went and sat down on a table. This was on Monday night, and at the Red Lion in Stubbington. But anyway, I sat there and I saw a few people I hadn't seen in years, and one of the guys had gotten married to a lady called Kat, who I'd never met. And I said, oh, it's lovely to meet you, and sat down and started talking. And I'd never met this lady in my life. And she goes, this is a bit weird meeting you. And I was like, what do you mean? She was like, I've heard loads of stories about you. And I was like, oh, flip. And then she was like, but it doesn't match up. What you're behaving like right now doesn't match the story. And I was like, oh. And then we started, because we were in this little centre bit, started pointing at all the places I'd had fights with people. And it was a lot of places. It wasn't like one hand. That was the problem, you know. I was like, oh, over there, that's where a girl stabbed me in the neck with a fork. That's where a guy spat at me and then I punched him. That was where I rolled about this other guy had a fight. And then just down the road there was a gang fight and I was in it. And there was 4 of us and 10 of them and it went okay, but not that great, you know. And I thought that was, you know. And there's your example. And so I'm doing better in these groups because I've learned some skills that enable me to do that.
And the irony is that often we think that gentrification is actually to do with Christianization as well. We think actually as he started telling us how to share our faith. And I thought, if my evangelical friends could hear this person swearing and cursing to tell you to go out and share the love of Jesus. But for him, Jesus had so transformed him, and he was so frustrated that these people in this room didn't see the importance of going to talk about Jesus, that he just lost it.
Yeah.
And it, you know, for me, it was a bizarre moment, but it was really real.
Yeah.
And a real challenge to me, because, you know, we don't get that angry about not going and sharing the gospel, and he did. He just flipped.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I guess, have you got something to say?
Yeah, just on the subject of middle-class work. Many moons ago, I used to work in a factory making church organs. And the guys I worked with were all very intelligent, but you'd never get them sitting around in a group talking. That's not the way their minds work. Small groups, I think, inevitably are going to be for people who have got some degree, not of intelligence, that's not the word I want, some degree of education, who are used to sitting around and talking. Working men don't think like that. You need to find a different way of getting at them, and you may never get them in a small group.
True.
I disagree.
Yeah,
I
go
know
on.
some people who are very working class and are absolutely, you know, they came from council houses like me. They live in a different area, but they still came from council houses, and they are absolutely passionate about Jesus and sharing their faith. Isn't Jesus? You know, Jesus is probably in virtually every sentence that they speak. And they lead Bible groups, they lead worship at different churches, you know, they youth leaders when I was a kid. That I think it depends on how much Jesus has changed your life.
And that may be the
that
degree of
is
education.
scriptural. That
Sorry, what's your name?
John.
John, thanks, John. And what would you say?
So that may be the degree of education which will actually get them into a situation where they will sit around and talk, just simply to get to know Jesus.
Well,
But
maybe
whether they get to know whether they get to know Jesus in a group is a slightly different question.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to say. I agree with you. There are plenty of intelligent working class men who are passionate for Jesus. Absolutely right. But I'm not sure that the automatic way of getting them to be in that situation is a small group. I think probably we'll have to find a different way to.
Which is probably what Steve was saying, where with your middle class small group, you can encourage each other to go out to those places, like pubs and other places that working class people hang out, or that you can meet up with them just to go watch a football game or something like that, something that they might enjoy, and start that relationship one-on-one with them in order to lead them to Jesus. And then if they wanted to do their own kind of small group, maybe not at your initial small group, but you could start with them and they could bring their mates, and then you have your own small group with them if it makes them feel more comfortable, and then the conversation's a bit more at their kind of comfort zone. But then that means you can do that, but from a base where you're encouraged in your own small group to go out, and then it happens, because that's happened, I've seen it happen before, where some people